Hello everyone. Welcome back to the classes. How are you all? I hope you all are good. You all are very great and you all are doing very well. So it's just that student we are continuing with the same chapter, that is the wastewater story, because we have completed some of the part of this chapter. We have discussed about water, and we have discussed like why water is important for us and how water is getting polluted. We have seen all of these things till now. Exactly. And we have discussed about that thing also, that how we can purify the water, what's the sewage treatment is there. Okay, but students, there are some more, like if I say more topics are there which we have to include in this chapter, and we have to discuss about that as well, because these topics are very important. Okay, so just continuing with the same thing. So that topics for today's class, you can see here, it is about like small topics. You can see these are small topics. That's like eutrophication, Ganga action plan, and biomagnification. So these are the important topics and very interesting as well. Okay, so students, have you ever noticed, like if I ask you that any pond, lake, or any area of water which is not having some kind of attached, like it is just collected in one area only, so you have noticed that it is having green color algae over it, that the whole surface is covered with the green color only. Because I have noticed that thing, and maybe in some of the movies, generally what we have observed such kind of images, if I remember, in the Hollywood movies, because you have like forests are there or something like that. So in that we are having one area where the water has been collected, and it is just like covered with green surface only. So why that green surface is there and what is going on, and you will not finding out any of the aquatic plant or aquatic animal in that pond which is covered with the green surface, that is the algae, green color algae. So why it happened there, that why that green algae is getting formed, and why we are not getting any aquatic animal or aquatic plant in that particular pond which contains that green color algae? Do you have any idea related to it? So students, today we are going to discuss about the same topic and same process, which is eutrophication. Then we'll see what is Ganga action plan and biomagnification. Okay, so the answer of this question which I asked you right now, so here it is, eutrophication. You'll say, ma'am, how the eutrophication is the answer? Because students, what happened, that eutrophication is a process due to which that green color algae covered over the surface, and when it is covering all of the surface, so what happened, students? You'll say, ma'am, just tell us now what happened at that point. So because of that, student, there is no such oxygen in the water. And you know this thing, whether we are talking about human beings, whether we are talking about animals or the plants which lives in water. Okay, so that animals and that plants also not getting oxygen, because oxygen is important for each of us. Exactly. So that's how, student, when the oxygen is not there, so they are not able to survive. Okay, so because of that, you will be not finding any aquatic species under the water when it is covered with the that green color layer. Okay, and that whole process is eutrophication. But student, it's not that only this process, like these steps are involved in eutrophication. Eutrophication is a proper kind of process which take place. What happens, student, that if we are having water in any pond, lake, or something like that, okay, so what happened, when the content of nutrients, when the content of minerals increased, that you can say when it is increased in the water, so because of that, student, what happened, there is the generation of the algae. Okay, because we know this thing, when the nutrients and minerals we are giving to plants, so they grow. So similarly, student, when the water is having more amount of nutrient and minerals, so the plant starts growing, and that could be the algae thing, that is the green color surface. And when it starts growing, students, so to decompose that algae, bacteria perform their action. And we know this thing, when bacteria decompose something, so they will require oxygen for that, and that oxygen they are using from the water only. Okay, and when that all of the oxygen is getting consumed by the bacteria to decompose algae, so because of that, student, you will be not finding any oxygen in the water, and that's how the aquatic plants and aquatic animals are not able to breathe. And when they are not able to breathe, so what will be the result of that? So it's just that you can imagine that if person is not getting any kind, like any oxygen, so what is the result of that? Suffocation will be there, breathing problems will be there, and at the very end point, that person is not going to be survived, because oxygen is not there. Exactly. So similar thing happened with the aquatic plants and aquatic animals as well. So that the whole process is called as the eutrophication. Now the question comes here, that from where that nutrients and minerals are coming into the water. Exactly. So students, when the content of the nutrients and the minerals is increased in the water, like in pond or lake, so it's the reason behind it. It's just that student, that the fertilizers or pesticides or insecticides that we are using in our cropping, so what happens student, those fertilizer will travel along with the water into the water lakes or the ponds, and that's how the content of the nutrients and the minerals increased in it, and that's how the whole process goes on, and eutrophication is there. So this whole process is called as the eutrophication, when there is no such oxygen in the water because of the high amount of nutrient and minerals, then and aquatic plants and aquatic animals are not able to survive, that we call as the eutrophication. Fine. Now for that students, I'm having one video, so I would like to show you that video. Okay, so just observe this video very clearly. See students, the very first step, that the fertilizers, as I have told you, that nutrients and minerals. See, where we fertilize, where we use these fertilizers, we use fertilizers for cropping process. Exactly, so that we can get a good amount of crops or the good amount of yield from it, because fertilizers increases the fertility of the soil, and that's how plants grow more and more, and they yield good quality of crop. Exactly, that's how the fertilizer is used, that is helping in the nutrients and the minerals of the plant. So when those fertilizers spread on the land by the tractor or by any other of means, so now what will happen? So students, like fertilizers, we have spread it on the land. Now when there is rain, so what will happen, that along with that rain students, because rainwater will undergo the soil, as according to the infiltration process, if you know, that the rainwater through the holes of the soil, not exactly holes, pores of the soil, they will transfer through the ground. So along with that student, fertilizers will also passing by the soil. So now what will happen after that? So student, as the along with the rainwater, fertilizers are getting absorbed into the soil, and that water is mixing up with the groundwater, and that groundwater is directly attached to any pond or lake. So with the flow of that water, that mixture of the fertilizer is also getting passed through the underground water, and it is going to the ponds or lakes. Now students, you can see that along with the underground water, so the fertilizers are also carried away. Exactly, and now those fertilizers are present in the what we can say, in the pond or lake. Fine. Now we know this thing, that fertilizers are responsible for the growth of the plant, because they contain good amount of nutrients and minerals. Exactly. So now when fertilizer is present in water, so what it will do, that it is having good amount of nutrient and mineral, and it will allow the more growth of aquatic plants. And in the case of the aquatic plant, there is the formation of green color layer, that we called as algae. So you can see here student, that this green color, what it is here, so it is the algae only. You can see it is increasing time by time. Now you can see that all of the surface is covered with green algae. You can't find out that water is present at the upper surface. It's just that algae is over there. And because of that, student, what will happen, that the no sunlight is getting to the depth of the that pond or the lake. So because of that student, what happened, that the algae starts dying. And when algae starts dying, so there are bacteria who start decomposing process. Bacterias are there, so they decompose the algae. Okay, and for this process, student, they require lots of oxygen, and that oxygen they are getting from water, and when they extracting out, not exactly extracting, but they are consuming that oxygen for their process. So because of that student, what will happen, that the oxygen So yes, so what I was telling you, that they are not able to survive, and this whole process is called as the eutrophication. That means when there is an increase in the amount of nutrients or minerals in the water, because of that there is an increase in the growth of aquatic plants, and it's just that algae. And when there is the bacteria, so they just start decomposing that algae, and they require the lots of oxygen which they are getting from the water. And because of that, plants and the animals which lives in the water, they find it out it very difficult to survive, and that's how they it result into their death, and that is called as the eutrophication. Fine, students. Fishes one more. Exactly, because there is no oxygen, so how it is going to be survived? Exactly. So student, this is the eutrophication process. So we can see here, just a second. Yeah. Eutrophication is an enrichment of water by nutrient salts that causes structural changes to the ecosystem, such as increased production of algae and aquatic plants. And when there is the increased production in the algae and the aquatic plant, students, so we'll know that this thing that no sunlight will be there and algae starts dying. And because of that, bacteria will start decomposing it. And for that, they require lots of oxygen, which they are getting from the water only, and which causes in the depletion of the fish species, general deterioration of water quality, and other effects that reduce and percolate use. Because of that, student, that water quality is also going to be deteriorate, because that is going to be reduced and we can't use that water for our domestic purposes. Exactly. So this is whole process that we called as the eutrophication. So now if I ask you that, okay, if this is the eutrophication, and because of the high amount of nutrients and minerals, the problem is get like this problem is getting formed. So now what we have to do for that? That we should not use fertilizers. No, exactly, we have to use it. But student, we should use fertilizers in such a way that is in very less amount, because when we start using fertilizers in more quantity, or you can say that when the ground is not proper where we have to yield the crop, so that's how they just directly passing through the soil and mixing with the water. So that's a student, we have to take care of all such things, so that the nutrient or the mineral level is not going to be increased up. Because I have seen that ponds and lakes which is totally covered with the algae, and you will not find out any aquatic plant or aquatic fish or any other animal which which lives in water. So you will not find it out here. So that's the whole process which we called as the eutrophication. Fine, students, I hope you got this point, this topic, that what exactly is eutrophication. Okay. So now coming to the important point, that is the Ganga Action Plan. So Ganga Action Plan is a very important plan, student, which has been started here in India. Why we have started it? Because students, we know that the Ganga River, Ganga, if we talk about Ganga River, so Ganga River is the holy river. Okay, we consider it as the holy river, that usually people go to such places where Ganga is there, so that they can worship it. Exactly, because Ganga is a holy river for us. And it is that, student, that Ganga river is also kind of, you can say that it contains so many other what we can say herbs and shrubs, which is good for our health as well, for our body. So it says that, student, that Ganga river is considered as the holy river, and pilgrimage places we are having because of that, like Haridwar is there, Rishikesh is there. So we are having so many places. Exactly. But as we know this thing, at use of that water with the different ways, like we are just taking bath into it, and it's just that we are just passing our waste material into it, we are just floating flowers into it. So because of that, student, that the pollution has been increased in Ganga. Okay. And as we know this thing, that the pollution is increasing in the water, so similar thing is happening with the Ganga also. So to stop that pollution, to reduce that pollution in the Ganga river, the Ganga Action Plan has been started. And it was started in the year 1986 on 14th of January. And the main aim was to lower the pollution, improve the quality of water in Ganga River by diversion and treatment of domestic sewage and toxic wastes from the identified point sources of pollution. So, dear students, if you remember in the pollution chapter, like if you have ever heard about the point sources and non-point sources, so we are having two type of sources: point sources and non-point sources. Point sources, students, are just those type of sources from where we know that, okay, from this point we are getting this type of impurities or the pollution. But the non-point sources are those type of sources, student, from where you can see that it's a complete area from where we are getting the source of pollution. That is the non-point source, for example cropping field and something like that. But the point sources are like that. So for example, if any building is there, any factory is there, and they are passing their wastage through the through pipes, so that type of pipe is called as the point source. So the action was taken. This plan was started in the 1986 on 14th of January, so that we can reduce the pollution, we can improve the quality of water in Ganga. Because student, as I have told you, it is the holy river, so it's our thinking that we should take bath into it. Because of that, we are getting good positivity inside us. Okay, and it's just that if you are facing any problem, so you can take bath into Ganga. And we have, like, generally people, what they do na, that the things which we use for the worshipping, so they just directly throw, not exactly throw, but they just put these things into the water only, that is in the Ganga water. And because of that, student, time by time, what we have seen, that the pollution in the Ganga has been increased that much, that the water quality of water was getting very reduced. So that's how, student, this plan was introduced, so that we can lower that pollution, we can improve the quality of water. And it's just that we can treat those sewage, that the domestic sewage which we are getting, or the toxic wastes from the factories and the houses as well, so that we can stop all such things. So because of that, student, we have started using this plan, and we have made some of the point that how we have to improve this quality. That means the very first thing, that we have to stop the pollutants to be enter into the Ganga water. Exactly, because pollutants are the more important, like the most important reason behind the pollution. And what are those type of pollutants, student? So the very first thing, that the plastic bags which we are carrying with us, so we don't have to throw that plastic bags into the Ganga river, because it's polluting that water. We don't have to throw all those things which we use for our worship, so that directly into the Ganga, so it's not good for that. Exactly. So that's how, student, we have used many steps, and those steps include, if we combine them together, that is called as the Ganga action plan. And this plan was just only started so that we can lower the pollution, improve the quality of water of the Ganga river. Okay, because students, Ganga, as I've told you, it's a holy river, so it's our duty to maintain it. Not only Ganga, it's about every type of source of water, student, that if we know this thing, that this water is going to be used up by us, so we don't have to pollute it. Exactly, like we have already discussed all such thing. But it's just that in this year, what we have noticed, that the pollution in the Ganga has been increased to such extent that now we should stop it, and we should have to take some steps. So that's the whole point, that the Ganga action plan was introduced in 1986. And now, and if we see that, yes, Ganga has been improved. Okay, but it's just that, student, now it's our duty to maintain it. Like we don't have to take, like, exactly, you can take bath into it, but don't throw your waste material into it. Whatever you are having, don't try to put it into it. Okay, because of that, pollution level increases. Okay, and it's just that, don't try to pass all of the wastage, like your domestic sewage or the toxic wastage, directly into the Ganga river, because, student, like, it is polluting it. So these steps we have to follow. And this this plan must be utilized or implemented till, I can say, till the last breath of our human being, so that our Ganga river will be saved from the pollution. Exactly. So the Ganga action plan, student, as we have discussed, that it is because that we have noticed that, okay, in the Ganga, the pollution level in Ganga is increasing day by day. So in the year of the 1986, on 14th of January, Ganga action plan was launched, so that we can lower the pollution, and we can improve the water quality in the Ganga, so that we can start treatment of the domestic wastage and the toxic wastage which we are getting from the houses and the factories. Fine, students. So that's the whole about Ganga action plan. Now with the last topic of this class, that is the biomagnification. So students, biomagnification is a type of topic. You can see magnification, if the from the word magnification, if you are getting that something is going to be increased. Exactly, like magnifier which we use in our house, not houses, because we don't require it, but yes, magnifying glasses we are having. So by looking through that magnifying glasses, what you will be observing, that the small letters, like you can see them in a very big size letters, they convert because of that magnifying glass. So magnification, and now it is related to bio, that means something which is going to be multiplied biologically, that means in human beings or in plants. So that we called as the biomagnification. Now what it is getting multiplied, so we'll see that in one video, because after watching that video many questions is going to be sorted out. Okay, but yes, remember one thing, that something is going to be multiplied biologically, and that is creating problem. Okay, so just look at here. So I'm having one video.
Let's examine how human actions may impact pond species. For example, if there is improper waste disposal, spilling toxic chemicals into a pond and killing off the algae, it will decrease the number of herbivores, which will then decrease the number of top-level carnivores. In this case, the more toxins you have, the more the herbivore population decreases, which in turn decreases your predator population. Biomagnification is the increase in concentrations of harmful substances in the environment as they pass through successive trophic levels of.
So students, like if you notice there, what's the biomagnification? The biomagnification is a process in which there is the increase in concentration of harmful substances in the environment, and as they passes through the successive trophic level, student, what happened, like if you have studied about the food chain and food web, so in that food chain and food web, what we know, that okay, something is the source of food. For example, plants are the source of fruit, as we have talked about heterotrophs and autotrophs as well, if you know this thing. So heterotrophs and autotrophs we are having. So autotrophs are their self producer, exactly, and they are producing food for themselves and for us as well. So when they're producing food, so what will happen, student, that food is taken by some herbivores, and then herbivores are consumed by carnivores, and carnivores are consumed by some many apex consumers, exactly. So that's the whole food chain, and when the food chain are interlinked with each other, then we call it as the food web. So that's how, student, we form the trophic level. Now what happened, that because of the any reason, when any toxic substance is mixed up with our food resources, for example, like we have taken very first example with the water. So if we are producing any wastage into the water directly, and it is having toxic substances, so that toxic substances are getting mixed up with the water. Okay, now when they are mixing up with the water, so because of that, student, what will happen, for example, if any animal is drinking that water, so that toxic substance is going to be transferred into that particular animal. If that animal is consuming those toxic substances, so what we'll see, that the toxic level is going to be increased in that particular animal. Okay, when that animal is consumed by any other animal which is carnivorous in nature, student, because carnivores are what, they are the type of animals which survive on flesh. Okay, so that toxic are, now it is going to transfer into that particular animal, exactly. So that's how, student, toxic level is going to be increased up, and which result into the decrease in the population. Why? Because, students, when the toxic substance is going to be transferred from one animal to the another animal, and maybe into people as well, human being as well, so because of that toxic level which is going to be increased, it got multiplied, and when it got multiplied, so that means the toxic level is going to be increased. And when the toxic level is going to be increased, so you can imagine, student, when the toxicity is present inside our body, so we will be able to survive, exactly not. So that increased the concentration of toxic level into the people, and not only in people but in our environment, according to the successive trophic level, then we call it as the biomagnification. Okay, so you can see that at the very lower level, toxic level is less. When it is increasing to the upward direction, so you can see that the toxicity level is going to be increased, and because of that, what we have to face, we have to face the reduction in or the decrease in population, and this process is called as the biomagnification.
Food chains and food webs. When even larger fish eat those tiny zooplankton feeding fish, the larger fish contain an even.
See, for example, this water, like if we talk about here, okay, let me. Okay, actually, mark is not working here. So, okay, I'll tell you in this way, that the pond, lake, or water which contains some toxic substance. Okay, that toxic substance is eaten up by very small sized fishes. Now, those small fishes are eaten up by with the large sized fishes. So that toxicity level is transferred here. You can see that the red mark is over here. Okay, now
greater amount of toxins in their body. By the time top-level predators, like cranes, consume the toxic fish, the crane's body becomes so toxic that their ability to function, reproduce, or live full-length lives may become impaired. In other words,
so now you can see, student, that fish which is having the toxicity in its body, in her body, or you can say inside their body. So that fish is eaten up by some another animal, like that predator. Okay, so now the toxicity level is going to be increased up in their body, and because of that, student, what problem they can face? Like the problem is there that they can't survive. Maybe they fertility is going to be decreased. Maybe they are not able to fly because of that. So that's how we are going to face problem. Okay.
Organisms at low trophic levels ingest small amounts of toxins, which magnify as animals on the next trophic level consume those low-level organisms. And this effect will grow with each succeeding trophic level. Bioaccumulation is the increase in concentration of harmful toxins within an organism.
So students, like biomagnification is that when the toxic level is increasing at the every successive trophic level. Okay, that means it is getting multiplied. And the bioaccumulation, that means you can biomagnification, when it is increasing, because of that we are facing reduction in the or the decrease in the population level. And bioaccumulation, when there is an increase in the concentration of toxic substances inside the organism, that is called as bioaccumulation. Okay.
Example: if a fish is continually exposed to toxins throughout its lifetime, it may experience chronic poisoning and a shortened lifespan. The impacts of toxins are unique and may impact an organism in very unique ways. It's also important to remember that different toxins impact different elements within an ecosystem. One type of toxin may impact animals directly, while another may have indirect effects through bioaccumulation or biomagnification, killing off top-level predators. The impact of most man-made chemicals are still unknown, particularly the long-term impacts of these chemicals. If we continue putting chemicals into the environment and allow those chemicals to biomagnify, the impact may have extreme effects on humans as well. Our actions, and even our thoughts and words, have an impact on the world around us. It's not enough to discuss the impact of humans on the environment. What's lacking is compassion and the understanding that we are deeply connected to nature. Only when we come to love and respect nature will the planet have any hope of surviving the current 6th mass extinction.
So students, it's just that the biomagnification which we have seen here, that it is going to be multiplied, like the toxicity level is going to be multiplied, and when it is transferring from one organism to the another organism, so it could be possible, student, that if we are using those things regularly, like if we are doing those things which is causing the biomagnification at the very regular basis, so it could be possible that at one day that the toxicity level, even though inside the human beings, is also going to be increased up, and that will result into the, you can see that it result into their difficulty in their survival. So that is the biomagnification. So what we have studied about biomagnification, that it is the increased in toxin level inside the body of organism, the body of organism to every successive level, to every successive trophic level, that we called as biomagnification. So yes, we have discussed that. Okay, the what, like if there is one factory or any industry which is near to any pond or lake, and if it is transferring their wastage directly into the water, which is having some toxicity, so that toxicity is going to be dissolved into the water, and if that water is consumed by the fishes, so that fish is also having toxic level, and that is going to be multiplied at that position. Okay, and if that fish is going to be consumed by with any big size fish, so that is going to be multiplied, and when that fish is going to be consumed by with any other predator, so that is going to be transferred into it, and if that animal is eaten up by any other or like human being, so you can see student that at the every successive trophic level, at the every level of the food chain or the food web, we can see that the toxicity level is going to be multiplied, and if it is going to be multiplied, so that process we call it as biomagnification. Fine, and it results into the decrease in population. So that is why student we should take care all of such things, because as we have discussed about biomagnification, or we have discussed about eutrophication or the Ganga action plan, so all these three like all these three topics related to only and only water pollution. That means we are increasing the pollution in the water, and it resulting into the like into the negative impact for us only, because eutrophication is also not good for the aquatic plant and animals, because they are not getting oxygen because of it, and it's just that we human beings are playing the important role in such condition, because we are using large amount of fertilizers. Even though if you have noticed very clearly in the biomagnification video that we are using chemicals, and if we are using those chemicals like on the regular basis at a very large scale, so it is going to be increased toxicity level at at every trophic level, and one day we are going to face such problems. Okay, because the transferring of the disease or the transferring of the toxicity from water to any other organism is very easy, because water is the important thing for us only. Okay, and if that water is having the toxicity level, so you can imagine that all of us consuming water, and like we know this thing that some of the people are herbivores, some of the are omnivores, or some of them are also carnivores. So because it depends upon our choice now, that whether we want to be vegetarian or non-vegetarian. Exactly, so that's how student it depends on that. But if everything is using that water which is having toxicity, so that's how this toxicity is transferring to each and every organism, and which is not a good thing, because it is multiplying at the every level, which called as the biomagnification. Fine, and all these are just because of the pollution of water only and only. That means we have to start using each and every chemical, each and everything which is directly impacting negative impact on water bodies, so that it will not cause any problem to us. Exactly, student, because if you have noticed eutrophication, biomagnification, Ganga action plan, all these three just related to the pollution of water. That means something is not good in water, that means the quality of water is not good, because if pollution is there, toxicity is there, so we can't say that the pollution of water was sorry that the quality of water is good. Exactly, so all these things are just because of the bad quality of water, and it's just that bad quality of water is because of the pollution or the impurities present in it. I'm not talking about any particular impurities, because if something is present in water which is not good for us, so it will consider it the impurity only. Exactly, student. Yes, I know that some of the minerals are very important for our body as well, which present in water, but we should think about this thing, that the minerals or the nutrients which are causing eutrophication or the toxicity which is causing biomagnification, we should reduce such activities. Even though not only biomagnification or eutrophication, Ganga action plan, like why we have started it, because the pollution level in the water in the Ganga has been increased to that extent that that we should have to take some step. Okay, so that's our student. We should stop such activities which causing these problems like biomagnification and eutrophication. If they are going to be increased up day by day, so the problem is just going to be faced by us only. That yes, plants and animals are also going to be faced that problem, but we human beings also going to be faced a problem at a very large scale. And when it is going to be happen, we don't have any option to control it. So it could be good to option that right now that level is not has been increased that much, we can stop it right now. Okay, so biomagnification is a like you can see na, that the toxicity level is going to be multiplied at every level. That means the main toxicity you can find it out in human beings only, because we are occupying the topic level, if we say to the highest one. Not exactly, but yes, so that means you can see that the level of toxicity which can be present inside it, it could be more as compared to any of other organisms, plants and animals. So that's how student it should be stopped at this point only, that the usage of large amount of chemicals, passage of like toxicity directly into the water from factories or any industries, it should be stopped. So that's how student we can do such things, we can follow such steps so that we can get rid of all these processes because they are not good for health. Fine. So students, it's just that we have talked about, like we have discussed about eutrophication, biomagnification in Ganga action plan in this session, and with that we have just completed with our chapter. Now what you have to do is, like, you know this thing very well, now you have to watch the session carefully, and even though if you are facing any problem, any doubt is there, you can put your question on the public or private forum of Ask IITians, and definitely students, you will be getting your answer from expert side. And it's just that in the last, as you know, that thank you so much for watching the session and keep learning from Ask IITians. Thank you.